All right, page 21, then we're going to get into lesson 3. Anytime you see these types of questions, one thing you notice, one thing you wonder, basically the only way to get it wrong is to not answer that. So this is called an isometric grid. Anybody notice anything that they would like to share? Anything obvious stick out to you? Ian? Well, hopefully you can see some parallel lines, right? A bunch of lines going parallel here. Even the diagonal ones are all parallel with each other. That would be one thing to notice. Maybe you noticed a pile of triangles. More specifically, equilateral triangles. They all look exactly the same, all the same angles, all the same side length. One thing you wonder, maybe what is it used for? What good is it? What's the point? If you have anything different than that, again, basically a personal question, your opinion. So as long as you're able to answer that in some capacity, it shouldn't be an issue. All right, what the grids are supposed to help with is make it easier to make transformations, make it easier to move things. Okay, it says your teacher will give you tracing paper. It is not required to use tracing paper, but some people find it easier. So if you ever need tracing paper, there's a big box right up here, also called patty paper. Anybody know why it's called patty paper? Yeah, that's what's between your burger patties if you buy them already made. That's all it is, a piece of wax paper. So if you ever want some or keep some in your book, you're welcome to it. If you want to trace now, practice with it, help yourself. Pencil works really well, pen does not. But here's going to be the transformations, and then you can decide if you think tracing is easier or using this paper. It says in figure 1, translate ABC so that A goes to A prime. So my A is going to go here. So if you were to trace this, you would trace A, B, and C on it. And all you would do is move A to A, and you can see where all the points need to be. Pretty simple. Other thing you could do is you could count. B is 1 down and 2 to the right. So my new B is going to be 1 down and 2 to the right. So I'm going to put that there, 1 down, 2 to the right. Instead of calling it B, I'm going to call it B prime because now it's in a new spot, or B hat. Then if I go from A again, I can see that C is 1 up and 4 to the right. So my new C is going to be 1 up, 4 to the right. And then it's just plain connect the dots. So there's my new spot. I'd like you to try the second one. Read the directions, move that. If anybody would like paper, please let me know. I'll give you a couple. If you'd like to trace it, you can. You can put a lot of different shapes on one. Usually rotations and reflections make it a little easier with the paper. But not a requirement. All right, so we're translating C to C prime. It looks like C moved 1 up, 2 to the right. That means every dot on here is going to move 1 up, 2 to the right. 1 up, 2 to the right. So I got to move B 1 up, 2 to the right. Remember to label it B prime. It's in a new spot. Got to move A 1 up, 2 to the right. And let's just connect the dots again. Every dot has to be moved the same. 1 up, 2 to the right. Or you could have traced it to that location as well. Rotations, that's probably the easiest to use the tracing paper on. So I would recommend it. So all I'm going to do is trace it. Point O is what we're rotating around. And it says 90 degrees counterclockwise. So when I rotate this, I'm putting my pivot point on O. It says around O, and I need to move 90 degrees. So it needs to be facing down. So that would be my new location. So through the paper now, I'm going to wear a hole through it. Hopefully it'll transfer into my book. This is my new C. This is my new B. This is my new A. So anytime you do rotation, again, I would recommend using the paper. It just creates a better visual of that thing moving 90 degrees to its new spot. Again, the shape of the triangle doesn't change, should be always the same shape, same size, just in a different location. Reflection. Reflection is one that you could do by hand. Again, you could use tracing paper. I'll show you both ways, and it's a personal preference to you. Let everybody finish up 3 first. All right, if I'm reflecting across L, I'm taking note of how far these points are away from L, because all it's doing is flipping over this way. So C is how far away from that dotted line? It's 1 square, right? So on the right side, how far do you think it's going to be away from the line? 1 square. On the same line, right? All I'm doing is flipping over. I look at B. B is 3 spots away from the dotted line. That means on the right side, it's going to be 3 spots away from the dotted line. And A is 2, 4, 5 spots away from the dotted line. So it's going to be 5 spots away from the dotted line on the other side. And then you connect the dots. Okay, if you are unsure of that, the other option is to trace it. And then when you flip it over, just line up the line there again. And you should be on the exact same spots. Put this right back on that line we just reflected over. So either way, flip it over or just count. So you could get by without tracing paper on any of them, but I would recommend all rotations that you use it. Going on to the next page. Rotate quadrilateral ABCD 60 degrees counterclockwise using center B. So if you have tracing paper, go ahead and trace this. If you need some, come help yourself. It's up in front. All right, so every one of these triangles is equilateral. Equilateral means they're all the same angle. So 180 divided by 3 angles in a triangle, each one is 60. So anytime it uses 60 here on this, that's going to be super nice. That just means it's moving one triangle over. So it's rotating around B, so mark B as your pivot point. That's the part that's not going to move. And I'm moving the whole thing one triangle over. Because I know that's 60 degrees. So now I'm going to use my pencil, or if you have a pen, that maybe works a little easier, just to mark my dots. And then hopefully it goes through the paper so I can see it. I'm also going to make note of where my letters moved. A is directly below. B prime is the exact same spot as B. C prime and D prime. Okay, figure 6, 60 degrees clockwise around C. So everything is moving one triangle over clockwise. So notice how this line is right here. That's going to move one triangle over and now be up here somewhere. Don't know where the rest of the triangle will be, but it's moving one triangle over because it says 60 degrees. What am I pivoting around for 6? Where do I put my pencil to pivot? On C. How do you know that? It tells you in the directions to pivot around C. That's your center. So before you pivot, make sure you have pencil on C. And rotate one triangle over. So there should be my new location. Putting my dots in again. Connect the dots and label them. So if you can handle rotations, I think you can handle any of them. Those are probably the most difficult because it requires you of where do you pivot from. Also have to go the right direction. Reflections aren't quite as bad. You can still trace it and flip it over. You know, flip it over wherever that line is at. You can do that. Could also just count. Flipping over line L. So I'm looking at B, going straight down to that line. It is 2 spots from L. So that means my new B is going to be 2 spots from L. I'm just going perpendicular or 90 degrees from that line. How far is C away? One triangle. So how far is the new C going to be? One triangle. Same is true for D. How about A? How many triangles is A away? Adam? 2. New A will be 2. Connect the dots. And if you feel more comfortable tracing that one, you certainly can. Draw it out, put the line on there, flip it over, and put the line back on there, and there should be. That's perfectly fine as well. Last one. I would like you to just try that one on your own. Move A to C and draw where the triangle is. You can trace it, you can count, your preference. A should go to C for the new quadrilateral. All right, remember when you make an image or a new shape, you should label it A prime, B prime, and so on. But A moves to C. So all I did was move A over to the C and I drew it. That's it. So it should be connected right at this corner. Should look exactly the same. That's just a slide. Questions? All right, good summary then on page 24 and 25. We're going to skip that Are You Ready so you have a little more time on your homework today. Homework starts on page 26. Page 26, there are 3 different things you're going to do to that shape. You can draw them all on that same grid. Use tracing paper, count. It is your personal preference. Okay, all 3 drawings will be on that same grid on 26. Number 2, 27. It says draw a rotation, a translation, and a reflection. Describe clearly how each was done. So you get to pick how far you're going to rotate it, but you should draw a rotation on there somewhere. You get to decide where you're going to reflect it, put a line across there to reflect it, and you get to decide where you're going to translate it, how far you're going to move it. So that is your personal preference of how far you're going to do it, but should be 3 different pictures on that diagram as well on page 27. And question number 3, you're just moving that shape. It says tracing paper may be useful. I do not like how they have 27B, or 3B worded or drew out, because the picture is actually on the next page. Okay, so it says reflected across line L, and you might look at that and say, where's line L? It's drawn for you on top of page 28. That's where you actually do that. And then C as well. So a little bit of drawing involved today. It is still only 3 questions, but some have multiple parts. Help yourself to tracing paper if you'd like it.